getting kicked out of the car, having to go to the principal's office and kind of crying along the way because you're the new kid in school. And I would always sit and observe people. So growing up, I learned that how humans work and human nature is the same no matter where you are. My face just dropped. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening right now? So he puts me in front of the auction, in front of all these people. I'm 21 years old. And he said, all right, auction this off. I get from the crowd. I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, it's a beautiful piece of art. It's great. It has nice colors. And I bombed. I think people were laughing in the audience. A host of one of my TV shows told me, he goes, risk and reward follow the same path. Your risk and reward follow the same path. You have to take calculated risk. Entrepreneurs just don't take risk. They have somewhat of a plan and it's calculated, but there is also some hope and wish with that too. But risk and reward follow the same path. Don't chase what you can't catch. You can't catch a cheetah. Cheetah is the fastest animal on earth, and everyone tries to catch it. They just want to be seen and understood. Pain, trauma, poverty, poor, rich, forget all the labels. Your story matters. But if you keep running away from the problem, the pain, the issue that you have, be it business communication, being shy, nervous, afraid, if you keep allowing those things to control you, that's fine. We all do it. But there comes a moment where you have a tipping point and you...
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Neuro, the podcast where we democratize knowledge. Here, we interview people at the pinnacle of success within their field and share their lived experience so we teenagers can be thinking bigger, earlier. I'm Aaron, and today I'm joined by Tennessee Edwards, an executive strategist, producer, and the chief creative and CEO of Workshed, a strategy and creative firm working across content, brand strategy, startups, and new business models. Working with many industries like media, construction, tech, manufacturing, and anywhere entrepreneurs are looking for a 360 approach to growth. With over 25 years in entertainment, Tennessee has produced shows for many platforms, such as A&E, Fox, and MTV, and managed hundreds of millions of dollars in content. He launched iconic series like The Ultimate Fighter for the UFC and Tiny House Nation, starting the trend of tiny houses, together reaching tens of millions of viewers. He's also worked with global brands like Home Depot, Boot Barn, Sailor Jerry Rum, and Zillow, plus many others, building storytelling campaigns that actually move the needle. This isn't just a career, it's a masterclass in how to evolve with the industry and pivot your career without losing your creative edge. Let's jump in. Before we get into all the wild career moves, I want to go back. We see the polished version of people, but there's always that early moment where something clicks. Tennessee, was there a specific moment from your childhood that really shaped how you think today, or planted the seed for what you would go on to do? What was going through your mind at the time, and how did that moment start to shape your ideas of the way you saw the world?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's good to see you again. And, you're traveling and I'm here in New York City, so it's good to see your face via this podcast. And congratulations on launching your first podcast. It's pretty great. So when I was a kid, a lot of people think about moments of business, right? They sold lemonade at a lemonade stand or they sold newspapers. I did all those things. But I think the thing for me was I learned to sit and observe people. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I moved around a lot. I was divorced parents when I was about 2 years old. I went to about 15 schools before I got to high school. And I was at a new school every 4 to 5 months. And I always remember just kind of getting kicked out of the car, having to go to the principal's office and kind of crying along the way because you're the new kid in school. And I would always sit and observe people. So growing up, I learned that how humans work and human nature is the same no matter where you are. And I'll give an example. I was in Chula Vista, California, and I moved to this school and I was a little bit of the outsider, right? I was one of the only kids in school that was unique and different, had a name like Tennessee. And there's some gangs that would love to punch on me and beat me up a little bit because of my name and pick on me. And wherever I went, I had that happen and I saw it happen to other people. And when you go through things like that, you realize, oh, everyone's going through something and everyone is just trying to fit in. So I would come home from that crying and my father would be in the kitchen. My dad was an interesting man. He was a little bit Kenny Rogers and Johnny Cash rolled into one, which are American country singers. He was a tough guy. And my dad would get his fists up and he would make me fight him to the kitchen. And people was like, what do you mean fight you? Well, he would make me fight him. He wanted me to go back the next day and stand up for myself and learn how to communicate with those people too. And I would be like, Dad, I can't beat up a gang. He's like, well, you can protect yourself. And when I look back now, this is what your question was, what was the lesson I learned about life? It wasn't about actual fighting. It was that life's not fair. Life will never be fair. I have an expression that you can be born with a silver spoon in your mouth, rich kid, or you can be born in the gutter. Your story matters, no matter where you're from. You have to use the story of your own personality type, the fuel of the mistakes you make, use it as fuel for your fire to grow into the best life you possibly can and help people around you. And therefore, not judge people, treat everyone the same. That experience taught me to treat everyone the same. I treat, a billionaire as the same as I do a barista at the coffee shop, because I learned growing up that life's not fair. Everyone has something they're going through. Those kids in the gang had something they're going through. We all have our thing. So the point is, life's not fair, but you can make it better by how you treat people and how you learn to move forward through life and overcome obstacles. Yeah.
Most people in business or media had some kind of early hustle, maybe selling something, maybe creating something, just for the thrill of it. What was that first moment, project, or experience for you? The one where you got a taste of building something and thought, yeah, maybe I can do something.
Well, I think for me, when I was younger, I started building houses. There's two things. When I was younger, I started building houses. I was about 14, 15 years old, and it was illegal to do that. You weren't allowed to work at that age here in the United States, but they'd pay me cash under the table. And I would build footers for houses and bend rebar in Florida and lay concrete. And rebar is what goes inside concrete for foundations of homes. And I would work and I would observe people working with me. And some of these guys I thought were in their 40s or 50s, but they were only 30, just weather beaten from the sun. And they were working just to make a living, right? And I remember thinking how hard it is. And you see it all around the world, people doing manual labor to using their brain. There's choices. And manual labor is actually a great thing to do because it gives you something to do with your hands and focus every day. I believe in skilled trade and labor, but I also love working with my mind. But that showed me the value of working with my hands and also that I would work with my mind. Then when I was a little bit older, I didn't have the opportunity to go to university. I was, just kind of figuring out who I was and trying to make some moves. And so I started working a lot of odd jobs. I worked many, many jobs. And then I started driving a truck for an art auction company. And this is a pinnacle moment in my life that really kind of, was a tipping point. I just became a truck driver when I was about 21 years old, driving a truck all around the country for art for charities. And the owner of the company, a great man, no longer with us, he was probably what I would say, never had many mentors in life. He's probably one that I would consider definitely a mentor and gave me a spark. And I would drive that truck. And after about a year living on the road, I said, I want to become an art auctioneer. And he just laughed at me. And I had long hair down my back and wasn't really educated to sell art, as people would say. But you realize that it's all about people and how do you put people together in sales. Sales is all about people. So after a while, he said, okay, drive all my shows. And one day I get up in front of a crowd. He's auctioning off art. We're in front of about 200 and some odd people. And we do this for charities or military bases, all types of ways that we would sell this art and give percentage to the charity. And in the middle of the auction, he stops the auction. He says, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have Tennessee Edwards get up here and auction off a piece of art. My face just dropped. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening right now? So he puts me in front of the auction, in front of all these people. I'm 21 years old. And there's a piece of art on the easel, kind of like art on the easel here. And he said, all right, auction this off. I get from the crowd. I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, it's a beautiful piece of art. It's great. It has nice colors. And I bombed. I think people were laughing in the audience. And he said, everybody give him a round of applause and give me a round of applause. I get off the stage and there was an intermission. I was so upset. And I remember saying to him, why did you do that? And he goes, well, you want to be an auctioneer. Sometimes in life, you have to put yourself in the fire. You have to do hard things to decide if you want to actually do it. There's nothing easy. And then I said, yes, but you know everything about that art. I don't. He said, okay, let me teach you a lesson. He showed me the art. I'll never forget. It was Paris of the Ceiling Opera House. It was by Marc Chagall. It was a lithograph, just a replica. And he started talking about it. And I said, again, you know everything about it? He said, no. He goes, I just told you the title. He said, I told you a story. This moment has actually been a tipping point in my whole life, the value of story and how you communicate with others. It helped me in my career and everything. So with that piece, he told me how you could use the words possibly and maybe and tell a story. So an example would be, if you don't know anything about that art, you could say, possibly when Marc Chagall was a child, he would walk through his village and he would notice the people working in his village, the cobbler, the baker, the grandmother, his best friend's mom. Maybe he would notice these people and what they did, their mannerisms. And if you notice Marc Chagall's work, it looks like they're floating in the sky. Possibly he was thinking about times when he was dreaming when he was a child. So it's not what you're doing is you're selling the emotion everyone can relate to about community and family. Yes, then you need to know the art. You need to know your subject matter if you're selling something, of course. But he was telling me the power of story, how you can use your own mind to figure out what things are and then research and find out the facts and combine them. The power of storytelling. Everything is done. When you walk into a restaurant, I love to say, what do you notice first? You sell the sizzle, not the steak. You walk into a restaurant, you smell the sizzle of the steak. That's what gets you excited. That's the story. You smell it. You hear about this great restaurant. You go there, you sit, you eat, then what happens? You go home, you're a little bit full, and you just want to go to sleep. You love the steak, but sometimes the sizzle is just as important. So back to your question, the early moment for me, that hustle was from building houses, all the odd jobs I did, accumulated into that moment where he taught me how to tell a story, the power of story. And even though when I got to Hollywood, I was not, one from the schools or thought I was a writer. I learned that I could do everything in my mind, and I knew how to put people together. I could see every shot. I could tell the story in my head, and I could understand what it was when I was putting it all together. I didn't have to seek paper. And that was something I learned from sitting around as a kid, watching everybody, doing a bunch of odd jobs, and then learning how to tell a story. So that was a big moment for me.
And let's talk confidence. From the outside, it seems like you can walk into any room and just own it. But you have shared that it wasn't always the case, that you were once more shy. Going back to the story of the art auction company when you were younger, learning to speak in front of hundreds of people, did this experience spark a shift in you? And how did you go from being shy to so confident and well-spoken?
That's a great question. You learn by doing and failing, right? You hear it from young men today or women, or young men, how do they approach women? How do they have a conversation with a girl they like, right? It's always the same story throughout human history. There's sons asking fathers or uncles or friends or brothers, Dad, how do I meet her? How do I do this? And the only way with anything in life is by doing. And you have to get up there and make a fool of yourself sometimes and embarrass yourself, because then you learn the power of the rejection or the no. When I got up in front of that crowd and was embarrassed in front of all those people laughing at me, I didn't finish this story. The first year, he put me on the road after that. I was in the truck driver for about 6 more months driving his shows. That first year, I broke every company record for a new employee. I was only 21, 22 years old. I was beating people that were 50 years old, been selling art for 30 years, because there was 2 things going for me. I was curious. The audience maybe loved me because I was naive. I researched. I knew more art than anybody once I learned how to tell a story and research. And I broke every company record as a new employee that year in that role. And it taught me in life that we can be, and I also learned this in high school. High school, I grew up all over the place, and then I ended up in a small town in Tennessee. My name was Tennessee for the first time. I lived in Tennessee. And I became class president my junior and senior year. I was voted most popular. I had all these things, not because I was some great, important person. It's because I learned that if you're in a group that and values you and you learn how to communicate, your life can grow. So it's very important you put yourselves into groups where people value you or you fit in, just like I didn't fit in Chula Vista down in California as a kid. You have to find your groups, but respect everybody. And charisma and charm and the art of communication comes by putting yourself out there. I used to hate networking. I lived in Los Angeles, and people would say, go to these networking events. I still don't like it. I'll never be the guy that goes in a room with thousands of people and tries to meet everybody. I just don't believe in that. I believe that you do go into that room though, and you find 1 or 2 and you just communicate with them, or find somebody you like, you notice something about them. You notice their shoes, you notice the way they dress, their clothes. Find somebody unique that you feel fits with you and have a conversation with them. Even if you just have a conversation with them and not the 500 people that's in that room, that's okay. That's what builds skill and the art of communication. And everyone wants to have a story, and you have to learn to listen too. Listening is super important. We all want to talk. We all want to tell our story. But listening is one of the most valuable things you can do, because when you listen, you gain information that helps you with your conversation. It's supposed to be a tennis match. You have a conversation, they bounce the ball back. People that just hit the ball, it's all about them. They don't learn how to move and influence people in a proper way with the power of communication. So,
Thank you. And you have worked on some massive shows. The Ultimate